everybody. Welcome back up to the Vinyl Attic. It's been a while with all the things that are happening in the world. We get interrupted, with the ICE raids and America falling into a fascist dictatorship. I was down in LA for a week trying to be part of the Hollywood scene. It was fun while it lasted. I'll just say that. It was a good memory. But I did do the thing that I like to do when I go to LA, which is stop by Amoeba Music and get some vinyl. What did I get at Amoeba? Let's find out. Well, David Johansen, late great, recently passed David Johansen. Got some David Johansen vinyl. I got this great. This is like a British K-Tel from the late 70s with Madness and Genesis and the Pretenders and Roxy Music. I love these British ones because you always get some weird artists that you don't know. So I found that in the dollar stack. I got this great Mercyland album, this great David Barbie's great band from Athens in the 1980s. They were like the version of the Jam from the Athens music scene, I guess. I think I had this on cassette. I never had it on vinyl. I was so happy to see it. And the thing that I was so excited to find, Prince Charming, Adam and the Ants album. I had this album in my dorm room my sophomore year at Oxford College, and somebody stole it. And I've been wanting to replace it ever since. So now it's back in my collection. Adam and the Ants, there they are. So what we're doing, if you've been watching this channel, we're doing this count through of the 100 albums that should be in your collection. 100 albums that are a little, not the obvious albums that are, the records that everybody says you're supposed to have. We're trying to pick ones that are just not the most obvious ones. And we've got a great one to talk about today, which is pretty great. So maybe it is on your list to have, but Willie Nelson's Red-Headed Stranger, released 50 years ago, May 1975. There's a great story behind this record. Willie Nelson had really made a name for himself, not as a country music performer, but as a songwriter, writing great songs that were made popular by people like Patsy Cline, among others. But was starting to carve out in the 1970s a identity for himself. And recording over on Atlantic Records. He was on Atlantic, and he did a record in 1974 called Phases and Stages, which was not a concept album, but it was kind of this idea of writing about divorce, hot topic for country music, right? From the male's perspective and the female perspective. And he recorded at Muscle Shoals with Wexler, who is the great producer at Muscle Shoals, and it was a pretty good, cool record, and it started to add to Willie Nelson's cachet. So he actually had an opportunity to jump off Atlantic and go to Columbia, and Columbia was the label. I mean, Columbia, besides being like the Miles Davis label, this is Bob Dylan's label. So Willie Nelson got a deal with Columbia where he had complete artistic control, which was a big deal for an artist in the 1970s. So the story is he's skiing with his wife in Colorado, and they're heading back. And she says, "Why don't you do a proper Western concept album?" I mean, this is the mid-1970s, right? So you got Tommy and Quadrophenia, this kind of idea of the rock opera or the rock concept album is becoming a big deal with prog rock. She says, "Why don't you do a country music concept album? That's something with a Western theme." And so he has this song. They're heading back to their home in Austin, Texas, and he has this song that he played his kids, the Ballad of the Red-Headed Stranger, and had played on his radio show in Texas. And so he starts writing this kind of concept around this theme of the red-headed stranger, which is the story of a guy who kills his wife and her lover. So he writes songs, he brings in other songs that would be fitting to it. So he doesn't write all the songs on. In fact, he only writes about half the songs on this album. Records some of these songs on a cassette as a demo and starts piecing together this story, this sort of narrative of this, love gone bad and tragic murder and decides that he's just going to go get a little studio in Garfield, Texas, and just record basic tracks with him on guitar, a drummer, and a piano player, and that's it. Just really stripped down. I mean, if you think of, in 1982, Springsteen does a version of this with the album Nebraska, which we've already talked about. That he just records this very simple thing, and he takes it to the record company, and they're like, well, this is the demo, we want to hear the real album. And he's, no, this is the real album. Now, you have to remember, in 1975, this is when the music charts were dominated by Freddie Fender and Olivia Newton-John. So larger productions were becoming more common. He's like, no, I've got complete artistic control. This is the album. And they're like, no, you need to produce this thing. So his friend Waylon Jennings goes to Columbia in New York and says, listen to this. This is the album that Willie is going to put out. And they're like, no. It needs to be produced. This is too simple sounding. We want big productions. Country music is swelling, and more orchestrated in the mid-70s. And Waylon's like, nope, Willie has control. You signed the contract. This is the record he's putting out. You need to deal with it. So they had to deal with it. And they put out this album in May of 1975. And guess what? Willie was right. The song that was the single, Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, that came out a little bit before the album came out, went right to number one, Willie Nelson's first number one. The album itself, that fall, became a huge blockbuster, kind of number one all fall on the country music charts, was a massive success. And over time has gained even more attention. In fact, recently it's been described as the Sgt. Pepper's of country music. It was sort of this concept album that really opened the door for complete artistic control by country music artists, which was not a thing in 1975 until Willie kicked down the door. So this record kind of opened up a new way of country music to, be on the radio, to be much more personal, more simple. It doesn't have to be super syrupy with the same old orchestration. It just really kind of made it more down home. And also kind of helped pioneer this notion of the outlaw country. This sort of notion of country music artists having long hair, being kind of on the wrong side of the law. So, he was doing this. He'd done this a little bit earlier with Shotgun Willie, but he and Waylon started kind of teaming up, and then, all the sort of outlaw records coming out when they were teaming up with Johnny Cash and Jesse Coulter and Chris Christopherson, created this whole kind of subgenre within country music, thanks to this really great record. I think in the 1980s, they finally made this into a movie with Willie starring as the redhead and stranger. So it just had many lives, and Willie Nelson is still going strong. Just this year he released his 77th solo album, and that doesn't include all the albums he's done with other people, like with Waylon. 77 albums. How old is this guy? He just keeps going. We want to celebrate him while he's here. It's just so one of the reasons I want to talk about this record. It's just besides the fact that we're kind of recognizing its 50th birthday, it is a testament to the value, the legitimacy, the efficacy, the realness of artists in the face of the money people who think they know what's best for the artist. When the artist can listen to their voice, usually they end up making money for the moneymakers. The moneymakers want to squeeze you into a little box. The artists have this vision. And usually if you just trust the artist, they know what's going to work. They know what's going to resonate with the people. And Willie, who's had a career of doing this, really kind of broke through with Redheaded Stranger. It's such a great record. It's so much fun to go listen to it and kind of just close your eyes and imagine this tragic tale that's being told song by song. And Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. What a great song that is. So I wanted to acknowledge this record. It's not my absolute favorite. My absolute favorite Willie Nelson is Stardust, which I think is the best recording of American classics ever by any artist. But Red-Headed Stranger is right up there. All right, Willie. Still going strong. We love you. Still touring. Still getting high. Good old Willie Nelson. Okay. So that's this week's... we're going to go back. Speaking of outlaws, we're going to go back. We started this countdown way back when with our favorite person who's created a lot of controversy in the last 5 years, Van Morrison. And we're going to talk about another Van Morrison album. I mean, we could do this whole thing on Van Morrison albums, but there's another Van Morrison album that's kind of left out of the conversation. You know, we talk about the big ones, Tupelo Honey. We talked about Astral Weeks when we started this collection. You know, these ones that have the hits on them. Nobody talks about Veed and Fleece. Nobody talks about Veed and Fleece, and I've just recently realized that Veed and Fleece is one of the greatest albums ever made. I know I say that a lot up here, but good God, this album deserves some attention. So we're going to go back to Van the Man next time. But until then, God, we love you, Willie. We're so happy. Like, here's the story if you need to follow along with the songs. We're so happy. Willie Nelson matters. This album matters. You matter. So let's talk about it.